Imagine that every single person who crosses your path is like a mirror, but not the kind of mirror that just shows your face or what clothes you pick today. I'm talking about a deeper, almost magical reflection, one that shows what you carry inside. Your fears, your desires, the hidden parts of you that even you try to avoid looking at. At first, this idea might sound strange, maybe even uncomfortable. But once you truly grasp it, it changes everything. It transforms how you see your relationships and, more importantly, how you see yourself. This isn't just some abstract theory that stays trapped in your mind. This is action. It's about looking at the people who attract you or irritate you and asking, what are they showing me about myself that I've been too afraid to see? Socrates, the Greek philosopher, once said, "Know thyself." And this wasn't a casual invitation for surface-level reflection. It was a radical call to dive deep into who you really are and face what's been hidden. And this dive happens more often than you realize. Think about the last time someone made you angry. Maybe it was a coworker who talks way too loud, or a partner who ignored something important to you. That knot in your stomach, that burst of irritation, it's not just about them. These are signals, clues from within you, begging for your attention. The same goes for those people who seem to have a magnetic pull over you. It's not just the person you're drawn to, it's the qualities in them that stir something inside you, something you either want or feel you're missing. Let's make this real with a story. Clara, 32 years old, always found herself falling for men who seemed free-spirited, untouchable, the kind of people who live like the world is their playground. She admired their spontaneity, their refusal to follow rules or meet expectations. But no matter how exciting the relationship started, it always ended the same way, in frustration. The same men who once seemed charming turned out to be emotionally distant, unavailable, unable to offer the stability she quietly craved. One day, during a heart-to-heart with a friend, Clara had a realization. Her attraction wasn't random. The freedom she idolized in them was the very freedom she never allowed herself to have. Growing up in a strict family, Clara had learned to follow the rules, to be responsible, to stay within the lines. Those men were walking reflections of the part of her that was screaming for liberation, but that she had kept locked away. This is the power of relational mirrors. They don't lie. Carl Jung, the Swiss psychologist who explored the depths of the psyche, once said, "Everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves." This isn't abstract philosophy. This is practical truth. Whenever someone triggers a strong emotion in you, whether it's love, anger, admiration, or jealousy, it's like life shining a spotlight on a part of you that you haven't fully accepted yet. It's not about blaming others or blaming yourself. It's about getting curious. What is this person reflecting that I hadn't noticed in me? Think about the people who attract you. Maybe you're fascinated by someone with bold confidence, someone who walks into a room and naturally commands attention. Could your admiration come from a secret wish to feel more secure in yourself? And what about the people who drive you crazy? That friend who always steals the spotlight. Could it be that, deep down, you also want to be noticed, but you've never allowed yourself to admit it? Let's make this even more concrete. Grab a notebook and write down the names of 3 people who've left a strong impression on you lately. They could be people who charmed you, or people who made you want to run in the opposite direction. Next to each name, jot down what you felt: love, frustration, jealousy, admiration. Then ask yourself, what does this say about me? If you admire someone's bravery, could it be because there's a hidden courage inside you, waiting to come out? If someone's laziness irritates you, is it possible that you're being too hard on yourself to always stay productive? This exercise isn't about judgment, it's about awareness. Martin Luther King Jr., a man who changed the world with his words and actions, once said, "Forgiveness is not an occasional act, it is a constant attitude." He was talking about forgiving others, but this also applies to forgiving yourself. When you look into the mirror of your relationships and find something uncomfortable, a fear, a flaw, an insecurity, the first step isn't to reject it, it's to forgive it. Forgive yourself for carrying these wounds, for not seeing them sooner, for chasing in others what you haven't yet found in yourself. Another example, Joao, an ordinary guy, had a boss who was insufferable, arrogant, controlling, always acting like he was the smartest person in the room. Joao would lose sleep replaying every argument, letting the anger eat him alive. Until one day, in a rare moment of self-reflection, Joao asked himself, "Why does this affect me so much?" And the answer hit him like a flash. His boss's arrogance bothered him because Joao himself carried a pride he had never acknowledged. He wanted recognition at work, but he thought it was wrong to admit that. His boss, with all his over-the-top confidence, was a distorted mirror of Joao's unspoken desire. When Joao finally accepted his own need to feel valued, his boss's presence lost its power over him. This is the secret nobody tells you. Your relationships aren't random. They're a stage where your soul reveals itself. The Portuguese writer Fernando Pessoa once said, "Everything I see is a part of me." And he captured an essential truth. What you notice in others, the good, the bad, the inspiring, is always connected to something within you. That doesn't mean you're the same as them, but they're touching something real inside you. Think about that family member who criticizes everything you do. Could they be reflecting your own self-criticism? Or that friend who brags constantly? Could they be mirroring your own hidden longing for recognition, something you've taught yourself to suppress? These projections aren't coincidences. They're guideposts, pointing to parts of yourself that are begging to be seen. Let this reflection sink in. Look at your relationships not as accidents, but as invitations to self-discovery. The path to truly knowing yourself will always involve seeing your own reflection in others. Think of that person who's always traveling and sparks a twinge of jealousy in you. Maybe they're reflecting your buried desire for adventure. This relational mirror doesn't just reveal the other person, it reveals your own sleeping aspirations. Start using this mirror in real life. The first step is to notice your patterns. Have you realized how certain situations keep repeating in your relationships? Maybe you always end up with people who need saving, or maybe you run from those who get too close. These patterns aren't random, they're messages. If you're drawn to people who make you feel small, it might mean there's a part of you that still doesn't see your own worth. If you get irritated by someone who talks too much, maybe you've been denying your own need to be heard. The key is to stop blaming others and start looking within. It's not easy. It requires an honesty that sometimes hurts, but also frees you. When you realize that others are mirrors, something changes inside you, not to try to change who's in front of you, but to transform what's inside yourself. Marie Curie, the scientist who revolutionized the world with her discoveries, said, "Nothing in life is to be feared, it is only to be understood." Now, apply this to your relationships. Don't fear what they reveal, seek to understand. Every intense emotion that arises is an opportunity, an invitation to look within and get to know yourself better. And here's a powerful truth. The most difficult people in your life are often your greatest teachers. That friend who disappears when you need her most, the ex who hurt you deeply, they're not there by chance. They are messengers, bringing lessons you'd hardly learn any other way. This doesn't mean you should accept mistreatment or stay in toxic relationships. Recognizing what these situations reflect within you brings clarity to decide what deserves to stay and what needs to go. But while they're in your life, these people have something to teach you. Let's try a practical exercise. Today, pick someone who stirs something in you, for better or worse. Instead of reacting impulsively, take a deep breath and ask, "What is this showing me about myself?" Maybe you'll realize that admiring a stranger on the street is a call to explore your own creativity, or that anger toward a coworker reflects your own self-criticism. That's the starting point. The mirror is there in every encounter, every word, every silence. Have you ever stopped to think that the traits you most reject in yourself could be the key to becoming who you truly are? It sounds paradoxical, but that's exactly what we mean when we talk about shadow integration. We're not only talking about the flaws you try to hide, the bad mood, insecurity, laziness that appears out of nowhere. The shadow also holds your forgotten talents, those parts of you silenced by fear, shame, or because the world said they were unacceptable. This process isn't about being perfect, but about being whole. Believe me, Only when you embrace all your light and darkness can you truly love both yourself and others. Carl Jung, who dedicated his life to exploring the human psyche, said, "I am not what happened to me. I am what I choose to become." For him, the shadow isn't an enemy, but a part that needs to be welcomed. Imagine your shadow as a shy child living in the basement of your inner house. It's not bad. It was just sent there because at some point someone, your parents, school, society, said it couldn't be in the living room. Now it knocks on the door, sometimes angry, sometimes sad, asking to be seen. Ignoring it only makes it scream louder. Integrating the shadow is opening the door, sitting beside it, and listening to what it has to say. Take Mariana's case. At 28, she had an incredible talent for painting, but never showed her work to anyone. Since childhood, she heard from her family that art wasn't a real profession. She needed to choose something practical, like law or business. Mariana put away her brushes and followed the expected path. She graduated, got a steady job, but inside felt a deep emptiness. Sometimes she'd explode in frustration with friends, complaining that no one took her seriously. In a self-awareness course, she realized something crucial, that anger wasn't directed at others, but at herself. For abandoning the artist within, Mariana's shadow wasn't a flaw, but a rejected gift. When she started painting again, even just on weekends, something changed. The emptiness eased, and she stopped demanding from others a recognition she hadn't given herself. The shadow doesn't only contain what you consider negative, but also your brightest qualities, the ones you're afraid to claim. Maybe you're creative, but see it as a waste of time. Maybe you have immense inner strength, but fear being seen as arrogant. Rejecting those parts creates cracks in the soul, abysses that block your connection with yourself and others. Philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche said, "Whoever fights monsters should see to it that in the process he does not become a monster. And if you gaze long into an abyss, the abyss also gazes into you." Nietzsche wasn't only talking about external battles, but the inner fight with the shadow. Running away from it means being swallowed by it. Facing it means transformation. How to do this in practice? You need courage to look at what's been hidden. Grab a sheet of paper and write down 3 things you don't like about yourself. It can be something simple like, "I'm impatient," or deeper like, "I don't feel worthy of love." Next to each, write a recent situation where it appeared. Maybe you lost patience with a colleague, or felt jealous of someone more confident. Then ask yourself, what is this part of me trying to protect? For example, impatience might be fear of losing control. Jealousy might be a call for the attention you deny yourself. Understanding this is an act of compassion, not judgment. By integrating these parts, you become more whole and more capable of building genuine relationships. Because deep down, loving yourself means accepting that light and shadow live within the same being. When you invite the shadow out of the basement to sit at the table, you discover it only wanted to be heard. Imagine your difficult emotions not as enemies, but as messengers. Jealousy may not be just an irrational storm, but a silent cry for self-esteem. Anger may not be pure aggression, but a shield against feeling out of control. The goal isn't to erase these parts of yourself, but to understand them, to welcome them, to finally listen to what they've been trying to tell you all along. Let's take this reflection a step further. Turn the page of your own story and write down 3 qualities you admire in others, but have never allowed yourself to embody. Maybe it's the boldness of that friend who always speaks their mind, or the lightness of someone who moves through life without taking everything so seriously. Now, ask yourself, why do I believe these traits aren't for me? Who told me I couldn't be that way? This exercise is like shining a flashlight into the forgotten corners of your inner world, places where your shadow has quietly lived for years. And here's the real secret. Don't judge what you find there. Treat these hidden parts like unexpected guests arriving at your door after a long journey. Offer them a cup of tea. Sit with them. Listen to their stories. They're not here to destroy you. They're here to complete you. Mahatma Gandhi, a man who turned his search for truth into a peaceful revolution, once said, "Happiness is when what you think, what you say, and what you do are in harmony." Integrating your shadow is exactly that. The journey back toward inner harmony. When you deny what you feel, whether it's anger, fear, or even a talent you've labeled as useless, you end up at war with yourself. And that internal battle inevitably spills into your relationships. Have you noticed how easy it is to start an argument with someone over something that deep down is really about you? If you've been rejecting your own vulnerability, chances are you'll feel irritated by people who show theirs without shame. If you've buried your ambition, you might find yourself judging those who boldly chase their dreams. Inner peace begins the moment you stop fighting with yourself. Let me share a story that brings this to life. Pedro, 35 years old, was known for his almost saint-like calmness at work. People joked that nothing could shake him. But what no one knew was the storm he carried inside, that a silent, growing anger he'd been storing since adolescence. Raised by strict, authoritarian parents, Pedro had learned from a young age to swallow his emotions, to keep quiet and avoid conflict. But that anger didn't disappear. It built up layer by layer, year after year. One day, after a simple argument about a dirty glass left in the sink, Pedro exploded, and not just a little. The eruption was so intense, even he didn't recognize himself. Ashamed, he started asking himself, why did this small thing trigger something so big? The answers came slowly. Pedro had never learned how to say no, never learned how to express his needs. That outburst was the shadow of years of silence finally breaking through. As Pedro began speaking up, calmly, but with firmness. His relationship with his wife began to heal. He didn't become aggressive, he became authentic. This is what integrating the shadow looks like, that it's not a magic switch. It takes time. And above all, compassion. Maya Angelou, a writer who turned her pain into poetry, said, "We may encounter many defeats, but we must not be defeated." When you stumble upon something scary within your shadow, fear of failure, craving for approval, anger you didn't know existed, don't shrink because of it. Recognize it as a part of you, a part that, in its own way, helped you survive. Maybe you learned to stay quiet to be loved, or you hid your creativity to avoid being judged. Those choices made sense back then, but now, you get to choose differently. One powerful way to begin. Write a letter to that hidden part of you. Grab a pen and start with, "Dear Shadow, I know you're there." Thank it for protecting you, even if it did so in clumsy ways. Tell it you're ready to get to know it better, to finally invite it out of the basement. Yes, it might feel strange at first, but this dialogue opens doors you didn't even know existed. If you've silenced your voice for too long, sing in the shower, speak out loud what you've kept inside. If you've buried your strength, lift weights at the gym, or stand up for an idea at work. Small steps that slowly bring those lost parts back into the light. And here's the beautiful part. As you welcome what you once rejected, you'll start to feel lighter. Albert Einstein once said, "A mind that opens to a new idea never returns to its original size." Integrating your shadow is exactly that. Opening your mind to your full self. When you allow yourself to be whole, with flaws, strengths, fears, and hidden talents, your relationships begin to shift. You stop demanding from others what you won't give yourself. You stop searching in them for what you already carry inside. Love stops being an unfair transaction and starts becoming what it was always meant to be, a meeting between two souls who truly see each other. But remember, this work is a journey, not a sprint. There will be days when you'll want to lock the basement door again, pretend the shadow isn't there, and that's okay. What matters is you come back, you try again, because every piece of yourself that you bring into the light makes you stronger, makes you more complete, And in the end, it's that wholeness that makes you shine, not despite your shadows, but because of them. Let's reflect a little deeper. Look at your shadows not with fear, but with curiosity. You might be surprised by what you find, because what seems like darkness may actually be the light you've always been looking for. Sometimes, what's familiar turns into a trap. What once was a survival strategy ends up becoming a painful cycle that your brain insists on repeating. This happens because the known, even when it hurts, brings a strange sense of security. Let's think about Anna's story. At 34, she seemed to have a knack for complicated relationships. She always fell for intense, charismatic men who, over time, revealed themselves to be controlling. Every breakup was a spectacle of tears and empty promises. Anna told herself she was unlucky in love, but it was in therapy that she began to unravel this pattern. Looking back, Anna realized something essential. Her mother, a strong and authoritarian woman, ran the household with an iron fist. Anna grew up believing that love was this mixture of admiration and submission. The men she chose were reflections of a love learned in childhood. When she realized this, everything changed. She asked herself a crucial question: do I really want to keep living like this? The first step was recognizing the pattern. The second was deciding to break it. This is the turning point: awareness. Ralph Waldo Emerson said the first step toward wisdom is to call things by their true name. Identifying your patterns is naming what holds you captive. Take a moment now and think about your past relationships, romantic, friendships, or even at work. What repeats? Maybe you always feel abandoned. Maybe you erase yourself to please others. Maybe you attract people who need fixing. Write down these tendencies on a piece of paper. Don't judge yourself, just map them. Every repetition is a clue, a thread leading to a hidden belief. If you always end up alone, maybe you carry the idea that you don't deserve company. If you're always rescuing others, perhaps you believe your worth is in being useful. These beliefs aren't vague thoughts. They have deep roots in your body and mind. Neuroscience explains that when you repeat a behavior, your brain creates neural pathways, like trails in a forest. The more you walk the same path, the deeper it becomes. That's why change feels uncomfortable. It's like clearing a new road through dense brush. But here's the good news. The brain is adaptable. Neuroplasticity shows us that with new choices, you can rewire these paths. Every time you say no to an old habit, you plant seeds for a different future. How to do this in practice? Start with triggers. You know those moments when you react more intensely than the situation calls for? Being 5 minutes late feels like abandonment. A silly comment makes you doubt yourself for days. Those are triggers, signs that an old pattern is about to take over. Notice your body. Your heart races, your throat tightens. These signals are your allies. When they appear, take a deep breath and ask yourself, is this about now or something from the past? Anna, for example, realized she got anxious whenever a boyfriend seemed distant. It was the echo of her mother disappearing for days, leaving her alone. Recognizing this helped her respond not like a scared child, but like an adult choosing her reaction. After identifying triggers, it's time to dig deeper. Ask yourself, what belief is supporting this cycle? If you attract those who betray you, you may believe you don't deserve loyalty. If you live in suffocating relationships, maybe you think love means losing freedom. Write these beliefs down and challenge them. Is this an absolute truth or just something I learned? Galileo Galilei said you can't teach anyone anything, but you can help them find the answer within themselves. Breaking patterns is exactly that. Finding answers that are already inside you but have been buried by old stories. Here's another story. Lucas, a 27-year-old, always ended up with friends who treated him like a therapist. He spent hours listening to problems but never received support when he needed it. Lucas revisited his childhood and realized he was the mediator of his parents' conflicts at home. He grew up believing his worth was in solving others' crises. When he recognized this belief, my value is in helping, he decided to change. He began saying no when exhausted and asking for help when needed. At first, he felt guilty, as if betraying his identity. But gradually, his friendships became more balanced. He stopped attracting people who only drained his energy. Changing patterns requires setting boundaries with others and yourself. If you get lost in relationships, create moments to reconnect with yourself. A hobby, some alone time, a routine that reminds you who you are. If you attract selfish people, define what you no longer accept. Manipulation, disrespect, silences that hurt. Rosa Parks, who changed history by refusing to give up her bus seat, said, "Never be afraid to do what you think is right." Saying no to what diminishes you is doing right by yourself. But the hardest part is accepting the new, even when it feels uncomfortable. If you're used to chaos, a peaceful relationship may seem dull. Lucas almost sabotaged a healthy friendship because he found it strange that someone didn't demand so much from him. But this discomfort is the brain adjusting to the unfamiliar. Breathe and let the new grow inside you. Every different choice is a brick on a new road. There will be stumbles. Maybe you still chase those who don't value you or give in to fights you could avoid. Don't punish yourself. Get up, observe what brought you there, and choose again. Confucius said our greatest mistake is giving up on trying. Breaking patterns is a process, not an event. Gradually, what used to be automatic becomes a choice. The reward of all this is freedom. When you change course, you stop being a prisoner of the past. It's not about erasing pain, but understanding it doesn't define who you are. True freedom is born when you decide to look at your repetitions with curiosity, not guilt. Every broken pattern is a silent victory. And when you finally free yourself from cycles, you discover that what seemed impossible, a healthy relationship, a genuine friendship, a love that doesn't suffocate, becomes reality. So start now. Look at yourself with courage and tenderness. Transformation isn't about becoming perfect, but about becoming whole. And by allowing yourself to be complete, light and shadow, you finally discover that living can be much lighter than you imagined. When you stop being a prisoner of the past, your relationships change color. You stop attracting those who reflect your wounds and begin to find those who resonate with your strength. Love stops being a safe harbor where you seek completeness and turns into an open field of growth. No longer a space of repetition, but of creation. Start today. Look at what repeats in your life and name it. With a small but firm step, begin walking out of the loop. You are not doomed to live the same script. The power to rewrite your story is in your hands. And what if love wasn't the happy ending you imagine, but the beginning of a journey to know yourself more deeply? Many grow up believing love is a reward, something that comes when you find the right person or when circumstances align. But this view, as romantic as it seems, traps us in an endless search for something outside ourselves. In truth, love is not just a feeling or a happy ending, it's a powerful tool, a journey that challenges us, reflects who we really are, and invites us to grow. It's not about feeling good all the time, but about using every encounter, every conflict, every spark of connection as a way to discover who you truly are and who you can become. When you see love this way, relationships stop being anchors that hold you in place and instead become fertile ground where you can evolve and transform. The Persian poet Rumi, whose wisdom has echoed across centuries, once said, "Beyond right and wrong, there is a field. I will meet you there." He wasn't just talking about romantic encounters, he was describing a place where masks fall away and truth shines through. To reach that place, you have to let go of the fixed ideas you carry about love, about how things should be, about what you deserve or fear. Let's bring this to life through Sophia's story. At 40, she seemed to live the perfect marriage, a steady routine, a beautiful home, well-raised kids. But inside, there was a weight she couldn't explain. Everything shifted over a simple argument about who would take the kids to school. The tone rose, and her husband snapped, "You never know what you want." Those words cut deep. Alone a few days later, Sophia asked herself why it hurt so much, and the answer hit her like a punch. She truly didn't know. For years, she had shaped her life around the expectations of her husband, her children, her family. She had never stopped to listen to her own desires. That fight wasn't just a conflict, it was a call to find herself again. In that moment, love became a mirror forcing her to grow. This is the power of seeing love as a tool. It doesn't let you stay stuck. The French philosopher Jean-Jacques Rousseau said, "Man is born free, yet everywhere he is in chains." Often, those chains are the ideas we hold about love, that it should complete us, save us, make us happy without effort. But true love doesn't work that way. It shakes you, unsettles you, and pushes you to face what's hidden inside. When someone hurts you, it's not just about the pain, it's about what that pain uncovers. Maybe it brings up an old wound that needs healing. When someone inspires you, it's not just admiration, it's an invitation to awaken something asleep within you. Every relationship is a classroom, and every feeling a lesson. Practically, this means shifting how you see challenges. Think about a recent conflict. Maybe a friend forgot a plan, or your partner said something that upset you. Your first reaction might be to blame or shut down. But try flipping the question, what is this teaching me about myself? If a friend's lateness makes you furious, maybe you fear being undervalued. If a comment hurts, maybe it touches a deep insecurity. This isn't about excusing the other's mistakes. It's about using your feelings as a flashlight to illuminate your own hidden corners. Consider Thago's story. At 25, he was dating a lively girl who often made plans without asking him. At first, he found it charming, but over time he felt suffocated. One night, after another argument about a weekend she decided alone, Thago exploded. "You never listen to me," she fired back. "You never say what you want." That phrase stuck with him. Reflecting, Thago realized she was right. He grew up in a home where disagreement meant fights, so he learned to stay silent. His suffocation wasn't just her fault, it was also his, for never standing up for himself. Instead of ending the relationship, he chose to change. He began to speak his mind, even when scared. Their love became a place of learning, not accusations. This is the leap from immature to mature love. Immature love seeks comfort and completion in the other. Mature love adapts, grows, and transforms together. It's not about surviving at all costs, but thriving through change. Attractions teach too. If you're drawn to someone who lives freely, maybe your own spirit is craving liberation. If you admire confidence, maybe your voice is ready to be heard. Thago realized his girlfriend's energy attracted him because he wanted to be more spontaneous. Instead of just admiring, he started trying it himself. He planned a solo trip, something he'd never done before. Love stopped being a refuge and became a springboard for becoming more truly himself. The people who pull at you aren't just there to complete you, they're there to show you what you can build inside yourself. Disappointments, painful as they are, aren't punishments, they're chances to break old chains. So stop looking to others for what you lack. See love not as a prize for your effort, but as a journey of self-discovery. Walk it with courage. The truth is, when understood, love stops being a destination and becomes a continuous process of growth. Allow yourself to be vulnerable. Don't run from conflicts, face them. Because the true power of love isn't to make you happy alone, but to make you whole. When you realize this, you stop waiting for others to solve your problems and start walking on your own stronger, more aware legs. Love then isn't a finish line, but the ongoing dance of becoming who you really are. Difficult relationships teach too. When one ends, it's easy to blame or drown in regret. But every ending carries a crucial question. What did I take from this? Think of a breakup that marked you. Maybe you gave everything and got little back. That hurts. But it also shows where you need to value yourself more. Maybe you lost yourself trying too hard to please. That pain teaches your boundaries. The French writer Anais Nin said, "We don't see things as they are. We see things as we are." A breakup isn't failure. It's a snapshot of who you were and a chance to choose who you want to become. In mature love, the goal isn't perfection but mutual growth. Two people come together not just to feel good, but to challenge, support, and transform each other. Think of a couple facing financial struggles. They can blame each other and drift apart, or use the challenge to build trust, patience, and partnership. Love becomes a lab where both test strengths and weaknesses. The surprising part? When you embrace this, happiness isn't something you force, it's a gift born from the process. You stop depending on others to feel whole and start finding fulfillment on the path you walk together. How do you live this day to day? Start small. Next time a relationship shakes your balance, don't react on autopilot. Pause. Ask yourself, what is this moment trying to show me about myself? If it's a conflict, look for the lesson hidden behind the anger. If it's joy, explore what it's awakening inside you. Nelson Mandela once said, "Education is the most powerful weapon you can use to change the world." When it comes to love, that education starts within, by listening, questioning, and growing. Every person who crosses your path is a teacher, and every relationship is an open book. Love isn't a destination where you finally arrive and rest. It's a fire that warms but can also burn. If you don't learn how to handle it, love demands your presence, courage, and willingness to go deeper than the surface. Take Sophia's story, for example. After a fight with her husband, she began asking herself not just what she wanted from their marriage, but from life itself. Tiago, on the other hand, learned how to speak up and listen. Neither of them found ready-made answers, but they opened doors to new possibilities for themselves. Love made them more than they were before, and it can do the same for you. Stop looking for love as a fairy tale ending. See it as a beginning to discover yourself, grow stronger, and become whole. Because in the end, the greatest gift love gives you isn't what it hands you, but what it helps you find inside the home of your own soul. Imagine yourself as a house where your soul lives. For years, maybe you've cared for the outside, keeping the windows clean, the door freshly painted, everything neat for those passing by. But what about inside? Have you walked through every room, turned on the lights, opened the curtains? Unconditional self-love is exactly that. Choosing to live in every part of yourself, not just the bright, shiny spaces, but also the dusty corners you locked away out of shame or fear. This isn't luxury or selfishness. It's the foundation of everything. How you see yourself, how you relate to others, how you face the world. Without truly loving yourself, you spend your life asking others for what only you can give. Aristotle, the Greek philosopher, said, "Happiness depends upon ourselves." He wasn't talking about achievements or applause, but an inner choice, a state born when you fully accept yourself. Yet we grow up learning the opposite, to measure our worth by grades, praise from parents, or likes on social media. We're trained to believe we need to be more beautiful, smarter, more successful to deserve love. But unconditional self-love flips that story upside down. It says, you're already enough, not because of what you do, but because of who you are. When you embrace this truth, everything changes. Take Carla's story. At 36, she spent her life chasing approval. At work, she did extra hours just to hear "good job" from her boss. At home, she cooked fancy dinners for friends, even when exhausted, just to see a smile of gratitude. But inside, she felt empty. One day, after a burnout that left her bedridden for weeks, Carla looked in the mirror and asked herself, "Why do I never do anything for me?" The answer hit hard. She didn't feel worthy. Raised to believe she had to earn love through effort, she finally decided to change. She started small, a quiet breakfast just for herself, saying no to work when tired. Gradually, the emptiness gave way to a calm she'd never known before. Self-love brought her back to herself. Loving yourself isn't selfish. Selfishness is demanding others carry you because you can't stand on your own. Self-love is building your own strength so you can offer the world your best, without waiting for someone else to complete you. The American poet Mary Oliver asked, "Tell me, what is it you plan to do with your one wild and precious life?" The answer begins with you. If you don't value yourself, how will you know what you want from life? If you don't care for yourself, how can you care for those you love? Self-love is the soil where everything grows: your choices, your dreams, your relationships. Practically, this means being honest with yourself. Think about how you treat yourself on tough days, when you mess up or have a fight. What do you say? "I'm a failure. Nobody will want me like this." Those words are knives you turn inward. Now imagine a dear friend in your shoes. Would you say that to them? Probably not. You'd hold them close and remind them mistakes happen. They're human. Unconditional self-love is learning to be that friend to yourself. It's not about ignoring your flaws, but welcoming them as part of your story, not the end of it. Raphael's story isn't the end of the road. It's a powerful example of what self-love really means. At 29, Raphael was constantly hard on himself. If he didn't run 10 kilometers at the gym, he felt like a failure. If a work project didn't go perfectly, he beat himself up for days. Until one day, exhausted, he decided to treat himself with the same kindness and compassion he always showed his friends. When he made mistakes, instead of punishing himself, he asked, "What can I learn from this?" The change was slow, but it brought a sense of lightness. Because self-love isn't about pretending you're flawless, it's about understanding that even your weaknesses deserve care. After all, loving yourself means giving yourself permission to be human, imperfect, yet whole. Raphael lived trapped by an endless to-do list. If he didn't answer a message right away, guilt gnawed at him. If he missed his workout routine, he called himself lazy. His life felt like a non-stop race to prove something he didn't even fully understand. But sometimes, life forces us to stop. On a trip with friends, Raphael twisted his ankle on a trail. He couldn't run and barely managed to walk. At first, frustration overwhelmed him. He saw himself as useless, a burden. But forced to rest, Raphael started to really listen to his friends' laughter, the wind in the trees, the birds singing at sunset. For the first time in years, he let himself rest without guilt. When he returned, something had shifted. Raphael realized that a person's value isn't tied to constant productivity, but to the ability to simply exist, with pauses, mistakes, and moments of peace. He stopped punishing himself for not being perfect and began asking, "What truly makes me feel good?" Self-love freed him from the prison he built around himself. This journey isn't about thinking you're the best in the world. Swiss psychologist Carl Jung said, "Who looks outside, dreams. Who looks inside, awakens." Loving yourself means waking up to your humanity, cracks, stumbles, and those days when you just don't want to get out of bed. It's saying yes to all of that, not because it's pretty, but because it's yours. And when you do, something magical happens in your relationships. You stop coming to others empty-handed, begging them to fill your gaps. Instead, you bring your strength, your calm, your presence. The love you offer becomes a gift, born from your wholeness, not a desperate exchange. How do you build this every day? Start small. Spend 5 minutes each morning looking into the mirror, not to check your appearance, but to say something kind. You're doing the best you can. When you slip up, write down what happened and end with a phrase of forgiveness. "I forgive myself for this." These tiny seeds grow deep roots. American activist Audre Lorde said, "Caring for myself is not self-indulgence, it is self-preservation." And that is an act of political warfare. In a world that demands you be more than you are, loving yourself is a revolution. On tough days, and they will come, the voice of doubt will shout you don't deserve it, that you have to prove yourself. In those moments, come back to basics. Breathe deeply. Place your hand on your chest and feel your heartbeat. That rhythm is proof you're alive and that you matter. After his trip, Raphael developed a habit. Whenever he felt like a failure, he stopped and wrote down 3 things he'd done well that day. Even small things like making coffee or smiling at someone. This practice anchored him in self-love. Its impact ripples through relationships like a wave. When you love yourself, you stop searching in others for what you lack. Carla, for example, realized she didn't need applause to feel alive. She began cooking just for the joy of it, not for approval. Her friends noticed the change. She was lighter, more present. Self-love shifts what you attract. You stop chasing those who ignore you and start connecting with those who see your worth. Not because you change to please, but because you're already whole. Curiosity about yourself is key. Polish scientist Marie Curie said, "Be less curious about people and more curious about ideas." Apply that to yourself. Be curious about who you are, not about what others think of you. This love has no conditions. It doesn't depend on losing weight, earning money, or being perfect. It's a yes to you right now, scars, crooked dreams, and bad mood mornings included. And paradoxically, the more you accept yourself as you are, the more you grow. Because self-love never lets you stay stuck. That it gives you the courage to take risks, to try, to be more than you ever thought possible. Mahatma Gandhi said, "Be the change you wish to see in the world. Start with yourself. Love yourself as if you were the most important person in your life, because right now, you are. Make a pact with yourself. No matter what happens, you will treat yourself with the same kindness you offer to others. Grab a notebook and write, 'I deserve love, and that love starts with me.' Keep this close to your heart, because in the end, unconditional self-love isn't just the foundation of your relationships. It's the foundation of your existence. When you love yourself, the world doesn't need to validate you. You are already home. Imagine a relationship where you don't need to hide, where there are no masks or games, just two whole people meeting in a space of truth. This is the heart of authentic connection, where love isn't about filling holes or proving something, but about sharing who you are, with all your light and shadow. Getting there isn't easy. First, you need to become whole. Stop looking for in others what you haven't yet found within yourself. But when that happens, relationships change their colors. They stop being a stage of needs and become a ground for growth, freedom, and genuine beauty. True love only blossoms between people who have already learned to love themselves. The Danish philosopher Søren Kierkegaard said, "Life can only be understood backwards, but it must be lived forwards." In relationships, this means understanding what brought you here, the patterns, the wounds, the lessons, to build something new. For a long time, maybe you attracted people who echoed your insecurities, the partner who ignored you, the friend who only showed up when they needed something. That wasn't bad luck. It was a reflection of what you carried inside. Doubts about your worth, fear of not being enough. But when you heal, something shifts. You start connecting with those who resonate with your strength, not your lack. Take Juliana's story. At 33, she spent years in unbalanced friendships. She was always the one who listened, helped, but rarely received the same in return. Juliana believed this was normal because she grew up as the strong one in the family, the one who never asked for anything. But after deep self-discovery, she began to value herself. She stopped chasing those who didn't see her. She started speaking her truth, even when it hurt. One day, she met Livia in a yoga class. Unlike her previous friends, Livia didn't need Juliana to feel whole. She was already complete. For the first time, Juliana felt she didn't have to carry anyone. It was a meeting of wholeness, not neediness. And that's how it happens. When you heal, your world changes too. You attract those who respect your strength and share your journey. Not because you need someone to complete you, but because you want someone to walk beside you. Juliana and Livia built a friendship based on exchange, not dependence. Juliana realized authentic relationships are born when you bring your fullness to the table. That's the secret. Authenticity attracts authenticity. American writer Henry David Thoreau said, "Simplicity is the ultimate sophistication in relationships." Being simple doesn't mean shallow, it means real. It means shedding layers of pretending, attempts to impress, and showing who you truly are. Being authentic takes courage. It means speaking up when something hurts, even if your voice trembles. It means celebrating your victories without fear of seeming arrogant. Juliana, for example, learned to tell Livia when she needed a shoulder instead of swallowing her silence. And Livia, being whole, listened without judgment. Their authenticity created a bond that needed no tricks to survive. What makes a relationship authentic? First, it's free. There are no chains of obligation or guilt. You're there because you want to be, not because you have to. Think of a couple deciding to travel together. In an immature relationship, one might go just to please the other, hiding their discontent. In a true bond, both talk, decide together, and respect if one prefers to stay behind. This freedom comes from the fact that each person is already okay with themselves. American activist Bell Hooks said, "Love is an act of will, wanting the good of the other and your own good." Authentic relationships live this, a mutual wanting, not a disguised need. Another pillar is vulnerability. Being authentic means opening up, showing your cracks, and trusting the other won't use them against you. Take Pedro, a 38-year-old man who was afraid to expose himself. He grew up in a home where emotions were seen as weakness, so he learned to shut down. In relationships, he was the calm guy who never fought, but also never really gave himself, until he met Clara. She was different. She said what she felt, laughed out loud, cried without shame. At first, Pedro felt uncomfortable, but gradually Clara invited him out of his shell. One night, he shared about his difficult childhood, something he'd never told anyone. Clara listened, held his hand, and didn't try to fix him. In that moment, Pedro understood. Being truly seen is scary, but it's also where love breathes. Pedro, for example, started painting again, a hobby he had abandoned in his youth. Clara, on her part, learned to slow down and listen more. They didn't complete each other like puzzle pieces, but enriched one another like two rivers meeting, each bringing its own current. How do you build this in daily life? Start by being honest with yourself before entering a relationship. Ask, what do I bring to it? If it's neediness, you'll seek someone to support you. If it's wholeness, you'll attract someone to walk alongside you. Then, practice clarity. Say what you feel, what you want, what you won't accept, not harshly, but firmly. Juliana, for example, learned to tell Livia when something bothered her, like a joke that hurt her feelings. Livia thanked her for the honesty, and their friendship grew stronger. Honesty is the cement that holds authenticity together, conflicts that build rather than destroy. And conflicts do come because we are human. But in a true relationship, fights don't break you, they build you. Scientist Albert Einstein said, "In adversity lies opportunity." When you argue with someone you love, it's not about winning, it's about understanding. Ask, what does this reveal about us? Pedro and Clara once fought fiercely over where to spend Christmas. Later, calmly talking, they realized it wasn't about the party. It was about the weight of family expectations. They solved it together, and their bond grew stronger. Maintaining authenticity requires attention. It's easy to fall into old habits. People-pleasing, silence out of fear, demanding what was never said. So, check in with yourself often. Ask, am I being myself here? If not, adjust your steps. This doesn't mean ending relationships, but aligning them with who you are now. Brazilian writer Guimarães Rosa said, "Sometimes we need to change the way we look at relationships. Changing the gaze means seeing the other not as a villain, but as a living mirror, a journey partner." The result is a connection that doesn't weigh you down, a light, true love. Imagine a love that doesn't bind you with expectations, but frees you to fly together. Juliana and Livia laugh and cry together, but never feel obligated. Pedro and Clara plan for the future, but live the present without pressure. These relationships are rare because they require work. Not the work of fixing the other, but of building yourself. The abolitionist leader Harriet Tubman said, "Every great dream starts with a dreamer. Dream an authentic love and be the dreamer who makes it real." Today, look at your relationships. Do they reflect who you are now or who you were? If something feels off, don't fear making adjustments. Speak your truth and show your colors. Choose those who walk beside you, not behind, not ahead. Because authentic relationships aren't about finding the right person, but about being the right person, whole, ready to share life. When you live like this, love stops being a chase and becomes a dance, a space where two complete people meet, not to save each other, but to celebrate each other. Love is already inside you. What if love wasn't something you have to chase, but something that lives within, waiting to be recognized? For so long, we were taught to see love as a hidden treasure, a person, a moment, an achievement that would make us whole. But that search keeps us trapped, looking outward as if our essence depends on the world outside. Love isn't a prize or a destination. It's an inner movement, a daily choice to respect and accept yourself. When you stop seeing yourself as incomplete, your relationships stop being desperate attempts to feel whole. They become places where your strength and vulnerability coexist. The love you seek outside begins to bloom when you understand you are already enough. And when that happens, you don't attract those who want to fix or mold you. You attract those who accept you as you are, because you've done that with yourself. The truth is different. Love isn't a goal to reach. It's a state of being, a flame already burning inside you, ready to light everything around you. When you understand this, relationships, days, and life gain new meaning, because you stop searching and start living. The Indian mystic Rumi said, "You are not a drop in the ocean. You are the entire ocean in a drop." Those words invite a deep shift. Stop seeing yourself as something small. You are already the ocean, vast, deep, full of life. Love isn't something handed to you on a silver platter or earned by being good enough. It is your nature, as natural as the air you breathe. But to feel it, you must lift the veils that hide it. Doubts, fears, and stories that convinced you that you have to deserve it. That is the great leap. To recognize that love does not come from outside. It is you. A story to reflect on. Beatrice, 42, spent decades waiting to be loved. She threw herself into relationships, friendships, even work, always trying to prove her worth. When a relationship ended or a colleague ignored her, Beatrice would fall into a dark hole, thinking she had failed. Until one quiet afternoon, sitting in a park, watching the trees sway in the wind, something clicked. Those trees didn't need anyone's approval to exist, to be beautiful. For the first time, Beatrice asked herself, "What if I don't need it either?" That day, she began to change. She stopped begging for affection and started treating herself with the kindness she had always given to others. She discovered that love wasn't in the eyes of others, but in how she looked at herself. That was the turning point. Understanding that love as a state of being is born inside you. The philosopher Laozi said, "When you realize you lack nothing, the whole world belongs to you." If you already are love, there's no lack, no emptiness to fill. This doesn't mean becoming a hermit or ignoring relationships. On the contrary, it means entering them without desperation, without needing to be saved. Beatrice kept connecting with people, but when she met someone new, she didn't come with outstretched hands begging for validation. She came whole, offering what she already had, and the bond that formed was lighter, more genuine. How do you live this day to day? Start simple. Wake up and be thankful for being alive, not for great achievements, but for the miracle of breathing, feeling the sun on your skin. This habit plants a seed, the idea that you already have value without needing to prove anything. Brazilian writer Clarice Lispector said, "I am made of urgencies, but also of silences." Embrace your silences, your quiet moments. In them you find the love that doesn't shout but whispers, the love that doesn't depend on applause or achievements, but on your presence. Beatrice began meditating for 5 minutes every morning, simply listening to her own breath. It was her way of saying, "I am here, and that is enough." This state of being changes how you see others. When you live love, you don't need to be completed by anyone else. You are already whole. This takes the weight off relationships and softens their impact. Think of a day when you fought with someone. If love were only external, you might drown in hurt, thinking you lost something essential. But if love is your natural state, you feel the pain, yes, but you don't lose yourself in it. You know love remains within you, intact. Frida Kahlo, who turned suffering into art, said, "Feet, what do I need you for when I have wings to fly?" Love gives you wings, not to run away, but to cross storms without falling apart.